Hello CSU families, my name is Kiri and I am the program manager here at RKV. I hope you've been having a great student parent week. We've had so many amazing sessions learning about financial aid, different resources in our community, and fun things you can do to get more involved in campus. Well, today I'm bringing you a kids-oriented session. That's right, today we are going to be creating an activity together and I think it's going to be really fun. This session, called Paper Roll Windmill, will use some supplies you already have at home, plus the other supplies RKV has provided in our activity kits. So what I'd like you to do is grab your instruction sheets, all of the supplies you need that are listed right here, and then let's get started. Okay, so our first step is to take a recycled toilet paper tube. Now I'm sure this is something you have around the house, but if you don't, just keep your eyes out for a few days and I'm sure one will show up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and then you get to take a colored paper of your choice. This can be white, it can be pink, it can be purple, it could be any color, and you can draw and design on it however you would like. This is your windmill tower. I chose the color pink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure how much paper I need for my paper roll. I'm going to mark it with a pencil, and then I'm going to cut it so that I can cover this tube in paper. So I will be right back once that step is complete. All right, so now that we've cut our paper and we've drawn on it if we want to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper towel tube, make sure I cut it to the right dimensions. And it looks like mine's just a little bit too long, but I'm going to trim it here. So once you've done that and it looks all good, you are going to use the glue stick that we provided, and you're going to cover your tube in glue and then roll your tube up so it's completely covered in paper. It's going to look something like this when you're done. But you're going to want to trim the excess paper off. So once it's perfectly lined up, you can use your pencil and make a small mark, or just take some scissors and cut right along that line. All right, so I've glued my paper on, but I wanted to show you how I'm going to trim mine in case you were confused. So I have this extra paper hanging off here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look to right where it's last glued onto my tube, and I'm just going to start cutting all the way up. But that kind of left this little overhang piece, and I don't know if I want that on my tower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that glue stick again, and I'm just going to run it along the seam, right where the paper and the toilet paper tube meet. And I'm going to roll that paper over one more time and really press it down. Okay? So now we have this. Time to move on to step 2. All right, friends, so we're moving on to step 2. So you can set your toilet paper tube aside for right now. We won't need it for this step. But what you will need is this template. This template was provided in your kits, but if not, it can be found on our website. And right here we have our template for the blades, the doors, the roof when we're ready for it, and some windows on the side. So this is where we get to customize a little bit, and I think that's super cool. So you can cut out however many doors or windows you would like to decorate your house. So just a reminder, our windows are the small boxes right here, and our doors are found right on the bottom. So you can cut out whichever one you want and how many of them you want, and then what I want you to do is glue them on your tube. Just a reminder, this is going to be a windmill tower, so you can decorate it again however you would like. I'm going to cut some out for you and then show you where I'm putting mine, and then we'll get ready to move on to step 3. All right, so I finished cutting out a few pieces I'd like to use. I cut out this cool little white door and 2 or 3 little windows. So first thing I'm going to do is use the same glue stick and put some purple glue on the back of my door. All right, now that I've got the glue on here, I'm going to choose a good location for my door. I don't really want it on this seam because I don't want to see it when it's sitting in my window. So I'm going to put my door right here. Just press it down super hard. You can stick your fingers in there, press it from both sides. Awesome. And so now I'm going to add a few windows. You can add windows wherever you would like. If you're inside your tower, how many windows would you want? Would you want to see outside of every side or just the front? I think I would want windows on all sides of my tower because then I could see the view at all times of the day. I think that would be really cool. Let me see. Is there anything else cool you would like to add to your tower? You can always draw something on too, like flowers in your window. Or maybe you could draw some grass at the base of your tower. I'd love to see what you create. Alrighty, so I've added 3 windows to my tower. Let's see. think they're in some good spots. So we have a window over here by my door, and I've got 2 on the back of my house. So you can add windows however you would like. And once you're finished with that step, get ready and we are going to move on to our 3rd step. Okay, for step 4, we are going to need a single hole punch. If you have one of these at home, that's awesome. But if not, an alternative is you can ask mom or dad to help you by using a knife to cut a hole on the front and the back. I'm going to show you what it looks like with a hole punch, and they'll know how to imitate it from there. All right, so take that hole punch, and you want to add 2 holes to the top of your tower. So since my door's at the bottom, I want my holes to end up here. So I am going to put 1 right here. But then the important part is that my second one needs to be directly behind this hole. So I'm going to follow it in my tube and place a second hole right there. So you see how I have 1 here and 1 there? It's important that they're even because this is how our blades are going to rotate. Once you have your holes punched or your holes cut, we are going to move on to the next step. Okay friends, for the 4th step, we're going to need our template sheet again. But this time we're going to be cutting off the roof. So as you can see here, it kind of looks like a Pac-Man with his mouth open. We're going to cut it just like that. It's even labeled roof, so it's easy to find. Once we cut that out, let's join back together and then we can glue it on since this step can be a little bit tricky. Okay, so now that we've cut out our roof, we have a piece of paper that kind of looks like this. So this part can be a little bit tricky, but we're going to walk through it together. So before I put glue on, I want you to notice when I take my 2 little ends right here and touch them together and let them overlap, I create a little hat. So once you have this shape, you kind of have an idea of what our roof will look like once it's glued together. And just for example, when we have our paper towel tube here, it can rest on there and fit as a little roof. But something we need to be careful of is if we cross them over a whole ton, I get this super tiny hat and it has a lot of extra paper, but that doesn't fit on my tower. It just goes inside of it. So make sure that when you're gluing it together, you let these 2 edges touch each other, but only by a tiny little bit. You're going to use purple glue to attach that, and then I will show you how we will add it to our tower in a second. Okay, so we've made our roof, but it will be easiest to set that aside and assemble it later. So let that dry while we work on making our windmill blades. So find that template sheet one last time, and what I need you to do is cut out these 4 giant squares, and then also this super small circle at the bottom. This square can be, these squares can be confusing to cut out because they have so many tiny little squares within them making a grid. We don't need to worry about the lines in the middle. Just follow the bold, dark line on the outside and you'll end up with 4 pieces. Just a reminder to cut that little piece out. We're going to need that for when we attach our blades to the little tower we've been making. So cut those out and then I will show you how to make the blades next. All right, so we are moving on to assembling our blades. Hopefully you have cut out 4 squares that look exactly like this. Pretty big, but I'll show you how we're going to make them in a second. You also want to make sure that you've cut out this small circle. We don't need it right now, but it is the last little piece on that template we need, so it's important to cut it out before we discard it. All right, so what we need now is to get some toothpicks. We're going to need some from around the house, but I would grab 5. 5 is going to be the number we'll need. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my blade templates. These are really big when I'm comparing it to the size of my tower. If I had 4 blades this big, it would completely cover my tower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them smaller when I'm wrapping it. So you're going to take your toothpick and you want to make sure the toothpick hangs out at the bottom, at least a 1/2 inch. If you don't know how long a 1/2 inch is, my rule of thumb is make sure it goes down at least 1 knuckle on your finger. Okay, so you're going to put it inside of here like a taco, and then you are going to fold it over your blade like this. Perfect. So it is folded hot dog style, as some would say, in half, and it is matched up on both sides. I made sure that my toothpick is sticking out, and it's about a 1/2 inch, but just to be safe, I'm going to pull it out a little bit more. So I've got a little bit hanging out. It's completely folded in half. But now I need to attach it. So I'm going to put purple glue on both sides of this paper and then glue it shut. I'm going to do this 4 times. So at the end of this, we're going to have 4 blades. I'll glue mine, you glue yours, and then we'll rejoin so we can assemble the tower. All right, it's time to assemble our blades onto the tower. What we're going to need is all 4 of the blades we created. Mine look like this, and remember, all of them are attached to those toothpicks. You're also going to need this small circle. If you saw on the instruction sheet, it was optional to pull out a hot glue gun for this activity. So if you have one at home, I would recommend using it for this step especially. The hot glue gun is going to make sure it's extra secure when our blades are spinning in the wind. If you don't have hot glue, no worries. You can use the purple glue we provided still, but just make sure that you're using enough that the blades aren't slipping outside of the bead when we get to that step and that they can spin appropriately. It's totally fine not to have hot glue. Another trick is you can use a small piece, like you can scoop it out and let it dry for a longer period of time, but the thicker glue might help those blades stay on better. I'm going to use a different camera to show you how I'm assembling these blades because the orientation is a little bit more important here. All right, so as we can see here, I have each of my 4 blades laid out. But what's important is that they're all facing the same direction, so that open side of that folded over half is all oriented on the right side. I have laid my small circle here and oriented the blades all in the middle. So what I'm going to do now is take my hot glue gun and add a small dot of glue here so that it secures all of the blades in the center. If you don't have hot glue, now would be the time to add a small dot of purple glue here and allow it to dry for extra time. All right, so now that we've seen how to orient our blades and glue them on, we are left with this. It looks like a windmill blade. How cool. I'm so excited that this is finally assembled, but we aren't quite done yet. So as you can see, it's just attached to the paper, so there's no way for this to spin on our tower. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that 5th and final toothpick I had you grab earlier. You are going to add a second dot of hot glue right on top of where we've added our others. You are then going to stick your last and final toothpick in an upright position like this. Once it is hot glued or glued for a longer time with our purple glue onto this blade, we are going to come back together and attach it to our tower. All right, we are almost done. So hopefully you were able to attach your last toothpick. So now we have our blades, we have our tower, and we have a roof. What we're going to assemble first is by adding our blades to our tower. So as you saw, in your kit you were provided 2 small beads. We can use these as spacers. So spacers give us distance between our tower and our blades so that the blades don't rub on the tower when they're trying to spin in the wind. So what I'm going to do is, you don't need glue for this step, you're going to put the bead on like you were making a bracelet. So you now have your toothpick, a bead on your toothpick, and all of the blades attached. So I want the blades to be at the front of my tower, right? So I'm going to find the side with my door, bring my finger all the way up to this hole that is right above my door, and I'm going to insert the toothpick through that hole. That is going to send your toothpick out through this end of your tower. Now, it's important to know that toothpicks are pretty short, and some tutorials for this use a dowel so that you have more distance, but toothpicks work perfectly fine. In mine, I've used a toothpick, and you can see that I'm not left with a whole lot of space on this other end. Well, if I spin my blades right now, it's probably going to fall off my tower. Okay, so let's move on to the very last step. We're going to take our paper blades, and remember, it's right through the tower, so it's just poking out at the back. We already have our front spacer bead on. Now we just need to secure it on the back so our blade doesn't fall off. I'm going to take my hot glue gun because it'll work best here again, but you can use that purple glue, and add 2 small dots on either side, kind of just circle that back little area. So then we are going to take the bead and just put it on. That's going to secure the bead to the paper towel tube, but not prevent the toothpick from spinning inside of it. So now we have this, and our blades are spinning. I think this is so cool. Now, if we want to make sure our blade doesn't come out the back, another thing we can do to be extra secure is add a small dot of hot glue on the very back of the bead, making sure it doesn't go in far enough to block that toothpick. So I've added it to mine just since I want to make sure it holds up to the wind, and we are all set. So now we have a working windmill, and we are going to attach our roof. So I'm just making sure my glue is dry here. And then I'm going to take this cap we made earlier. Mine just flew to the ground, but what we're going to do is take glue on this outer rim here. You can use hot glue or purple glue, whichever works better for you. For me, I just have my hot glue gun here, so I'm going to add some glue really fast. Just like on this very edge right here. And then super gently, because our toothpick is secure, I'm no longer going to need access to that top part of my tower. I'm going to rest it on here. All right, so it's complete. You've just built your very own windmill tower out of a recycled paper towel tube. I think you should take it outside and see if it spins in the wind. This could be a really cool experiment for learning about the weather, watching the wind patterns, and being able to predict when snow might be coming in. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned about wind, and I hope you had fun today making this windmill with me. If you created this activity along with us today, we would love for you to send us some photos or tag us on social media so that we can see your awesome creations. I hope you guys had a lot of fun, and we look forward to seeing you more throughout the week. Bye.